When I look back, baby, you've always been there for me. Something in the way you make me feel. Ain't no words about it. I won't show I'm not feeling. I tell you, babe, something in the way you make me feel. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to feel, and it makes me feel real good.
Hey guys, welcome back to Apolitical. Of course, I'm your host, Myron Joseph Douglas, and of course, my partner in crime here,
Brian Watson.
Hey, so we want to kind of talk to you guys a little bit about the National Black Voters Day, right? We want to talk a little bit more in detail and express how important it is to make sure that you register to vote. I think a lot of people are not aware that this is a national campaign sponsored by the National Urban League across the whole country. But also, too, every Black organization of African American descent or organization of color needs to make sure that everybody's registered to vote. And I don't care what party you are. I don't care if you're Republican, Independent, or Democratic. But you gotta vote because a lot of people made sacrifices. A lot of people have put their lives on the line that people will never know and never meet to make sure that, we all have a vote for today. Brian, what you think?
Well, my thoughts on it is that it shouldn't just be a day. It should be a month. When it comes to registering to vote or making sure that your thoughts on our political process is being counted and that you're being represented the way that at least you'd like to be, or closer to how you'd like to be. It's very important to make sure that we're having these conversations about voting, whether we agree or disagree on it. I think the conversation around voting needs to be more culturally acclimated. It shouldn't be limited to just when it comes up and there is a popular election or general election that comes up. It should be a constant conversation about year-round voting, and then, every year voting, and who are we voting for? Why are we voting for these people? And understanding what it is that from the community standpoint, how we feel as a group about the vote. Some people don't feel like voting really makes a difference. That's a discussion that we need to continue to have. And we shouldn't be exhausted by it. And we shouldn't feel like when people bring up the fact that they don't vote or they don't think their vote counts, we shouldn't reject them. We should listen. We should listen as to why. And I think what we're going to find when we listen to people talk about how they feel about their vote, that there's some things that kind of resonate with us, even though we may disagree about how they're going about expressing that. I think how people feel disenfranchised is a real thing, because there are many of us who are voting in this election, and we've got there's conflicting feelings in terms of whether or not we're going to get exactly what we need from a Democratic presidency when we feel as though our votes in the past have been taken for granted and the agenda to serve our community has been taken for granted. But it's still critically important to have discussions about voting and how we use the vote, right? And I think two things, and I'll pass it back to you, Myron, is one, it's how I vote should be something that is as clear-cut as I'm voting for you because I trust you to do the things that I know that I need and my community needs.
Preach.
And it's one of those things where you can see that when people say that they don't feel like the people that we're supposed to vote for, that best represent our needs as people of color, as a Black person, that if I vote for them, I don't trust that they're gonna do what it is that I need. So I feel like I'm gonna withhold that because it's personal, right? Like what I say with my vote is personal. And so I may withhold either participating as a Democrat or as a Republican and say that I want to hear what you say and what's on your platform before I vote for you.
And let me just add to that. What you just said is the baseline and root of democracy, right? You're expressing your voice. You want comprehension on what you're voting for. And you want to make sure that your vote resonate not just with the masses, but with your understanding, with your beliefs, with your ideas to the candidate. Now, mind you, it's majority rules, technically. Hashtag electoral college. But,
Right.
but, I think at the end of the day, a lot of Americans, they have a common understanding of what they want in life. I don't care, like I said, Republican, Democrat, regardless of political party. We have a common understanding of certain things, like we want health care for everybody. We want everybody to make sure that, they have the opportunity to get the best care and services that they need regarding any type of preconditioned illnesses. We want better schools. We want to have great quality education. We compete on a global level.
Right.
Not in your state, not in your country, but on a global level. Right? And we want to make sure that the laws are fair for everybody. We want to make sure that everybody have opportunity to get a quality job and equal pay. There's a couple of things that majority of most Americans want. However, though, if we don't vote, we don't express our voice, we don't get involved and engage. Because I like to always mention, voting is always the first step in the process.
But I'm going to interrupt you, Myron. When you don't vote, you do say something. You say that I'm indifferent, so whatever happens, happens. That's what you say when you don't. When you don't vote, you say, I don't care. Now, when you do say I don't care, you got to understand that whatever the result is, when policies start to go in place for the person that actually won and you didn't have your say, it's a little twisted for you now to have your say about what went wrong when you didn't participate at all.
You gotta have skin in the game.
You can be pissed, you can be mad, and you can kick down doors when you say, I voted for you, right? So, and I'm just gonna put it out there. I definitely feel the duality of voting for Biden-Harris. And when it comes to understanding what the current administration has done and what they're looking forward to doing, I get it. Cast my vote against the incumbent because that is the political strategy here. Yet at the same time, I do feel a certain connection to the fact that I am saying, I vote for you, I believe in you, Biden-Harris, and Biden-Harris, you will do right by my vote and my community's vote. Versus having the incumbent continue in another 4 years. So yes, I'm split in terms of, is Biden-Harris really gonna do what we need them to do for our community? Yet at the same time, I'm very clear that this current administration, the Trump administration, is looking to destroy, dismember, and create dysfunction in communities of color for the purposes of being able to seek out the economic advantages that comes with that, right? And we're talking about defunding police, and they don't want that to happen. We're talking about them funding education, and they're like, it's fine the way it is. In fact, let's try to find ways to give more opportunities for privatization of education, right? Let's make it almost a corporatocracy, right? Or hopefully I'm saying it right. And I'm thinking to myself, I really don't want that. So that's also what my vote is going towards, right? So as you start to put together the mindset about why to vote, it's not just voting for somebody because you want them in instead of the other person. It's the policies that you know that will happen also as a result of that incumbent continuing with another 4 years with nothing to lose. That's what's going to happen.
And you know what?
Another 4 years of Trump with nothing to lose.
He
might have held back before, but he ain't got to hold back now. He's not running a third time.
Well, the thing is this too. The United States is in a unique predicament. It's almost to a point of damn if you do, damn if you don't. Right? And you hope that your damn that you do, which is Biden-Harris, will basically provide a better administration than the one we have currently.
It's an administration you can work with. Let's just real basic. I think I can work with them.
Right.
They might be more liberal and I might be more progressive, but guess what? I think I can work with that. I tell you who you can't work with.
45.
It's not gonna happen.
No.
Not gonna happen.
No. And this is where people have to understand that, and like you said earlier, we can't sit there and register the vote when it's, oh, wow, my back against the wall and I got to vote. We got to do something. We need to make this as a common behavior in our culture, right? Because we have other elections, local and state, that also play a role in the bigger picture.
Yep.
And, 150 years ago, the 15th Amendment was, eliminated or ratified due to being against the law to prevent someone to vote due to their color. Now, mind you, that law was more towards men as well, black men, not black women, but that was the first step in saying that overall, as a culture, as a race, we will not stop you from voting. Now, that's voter suppression way back in the day, right? And now 150 years later, the residue of voter suppression is still around.
In fact, all right, let's take it from there and let's blow it out and call it what it really is, right? Let's talk about white supremacy, right? And how it plays a role in attempting to maintain its control, and I think even more so, white patriarchy, right? And how it is that it views itself in the current atmosphere where you have a Black Lives Matter, where you have discussions about equal pay for women, where you have a Me Too movement, right? Where you have everyone being very clear as to what are the obstacles that have been set into the infrastructure of government, in the infrastructure for society to hold them back. If you're talking about transgender, if you're talking about gay rights, if you're talking about anti-blackness, if you're talking about misogyny, if you're talking about misogynoir, there is an infrastructure that is in place. And then you get into the social mindset that has now made its way into some of the highest positions in the nation.
Systematic racism.
So now, with all that, do you think one vote during a general election is going to turn all of that around? No. And especially now, rest in peace, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But now we're looking at our courts probably being the most conservative courts that it's ever been since maybe the 60s. And that's not going away anytime soon. So what does that mean? That means every vote for every referendum, for every local office, councilman, alderman, magistrate, a sheriff, county prosecutor, county assessor, whatever it is. Know who these people are. Know what their platform is, and then either get them out or get them in. Whoever the people who are running. That's it. It should be a get them in, get them out movement. We're going to call it on Apolitical, get them in, get them out. And it's something that from this point forward, that is the goal. That is, we have to be a force with our vote. Our vote should be moving and shifting the landscape of every political office, local, state, and national, so that we are actually shaping who it is that makes decisions on every level.
And you know what, Brian? History repeats itself, as my grandma always say. What we're experiencing now, not just the 60s, but we were really getting close down to like the 1890s.
Wow.
I mean, think about what's going on in the streets, the protests, police brutality, jobs where now we have over 43 million people plus out of work. We have a health pandemic that's really dangerous to a lot of people.
FDA is about to push through a vaccine that probably is not going to work and might infect, let's call it what it is. It might infect more people. That's what people are hesitating to say.
Right.
They're like, I don't think it's going to be ready. And it's really dangerous for them to push this through in the time frame that they're talking about doing it, because we don't really know what the effect is going to be. Let's call out what it is that we should say, which is that the downside, if we're wrong about this vaccine, we could be unnecessarily exposing people to COVID-19.
Yeah, I agree. And then let's take it to a whole nother level. Look at climate change. Look at what's going on in California and the West Coast, the fires. Look at the hurricanes and tornadoes.
Flooding in Alabama and Indiana.
A lot of this is because we have to put laws, policies, and procedures in place for our federal, state, and local governments, because leadership matters. Leadership is real, and leadership is everything in the right time in the right place. And you're seeing right now in the current administration, leadership is not really being expressed effectively to tackle some of these issues that we're facing today. That's why I said it doesn't look like the 1960s, it looked like the 1890s. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
There's a feeling in me right now, Myron, that I just can't get over that. We're looking at these as political issues, but in actuality, these are social issues, right?
Correct.
That manifest themselves politically. That means somebody's learning something somewhere, and what they're learning is misinformation regarding how it is, who it is that we're talking about when we talk about the communities at large that need support, and how it is that they're describing those communities to be in terms of they don't really need it. They're just asking for a handout. There are people who are having these conversations at dinner tables, and they're talking about Black and brown people. They're talking about immigration. They're talking about who these people are. And then we get into the conversation about the policy, and then the people who make policy. Dan, I'm sorry.
No. Preach, brother. You're preaching. And, I just you said something very important. People are having these conversations at the dinner table, right? You need to get your significant other, your children, your spouse. I mean, you need to have these conversations at home. Best place to have them is at the dinner table, where people can actually engage, children can actually learn what debate is and certain importance of the topic or in policies. And you can have a way to educate and express what you know and also receive what you didn't know. That's the first thing before anything else.
It is.
A lot of time that we're doing in our culture, we're not having these conversations bravely. You know, we were like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I mean, now we're talking more because of what has happened with George Floyd. It has amplified the conversation, which is good. Unfortunately, it's due to a man's death, unfortunately. But we need to maintain these conversations because they are affecting our lives. It is social. Having these conversations at a barbecue, it is social, right? Having these conversations when you're playing dominoes, it is social. We got to have organic discussions about these policies so people are more confident about what they're voting. The facts that you receive is your job to filter out and verify the sources, because you know what? The devil's always busy.
Isn't he? And the devil is in the details, right? And so a lot of times there'll be policy that sounds good. 1994 crime bill. And the Congressional Black Caucus did vote for that.
Yes, right.
And I think we got to look at that as the parable to how it is that we measure what it is that we believe is the solution. The solutions should be carefully vetted, and we should understand what are the implications in a very granular way before we proceed and move forward, and have ideas prepared to constantly evaluate the effectiveness of said policy so that we're able to move in ways around that policy to make it better. Because we got to know, you can't just write a policy, put it out there, and then be like, yeah, it's great, it's perfect, let's move on to the next thing. No. There should always be some type of policy review that takes place that determines whether or not we need to revisit the results of how that policy is having an impact, because it's never that easy. Scientists know, when scientists do work, do experiments, or they come up with whatever chemical compound, you know, they still have to learn how it's actually going to have an impact on a human population, even beyond FDA approval, because there could be social implications with that particular drug and how it may interact, you know, under certain conditions. There's still not enough to know, because you could never know everything that you need to know and walk away from anything. You're still gonna be in a state of trying to learn and understand how this might have an impact on the human condition. And I think when we think about the human condition, we must consider how policies have impact short-term and long-term on the human condition. And like, before we wrap, one thing I want to leave our audience with is understand that the social is political, and we owe it to each other to kind of walk each other through the social implications for the political, and how the political, when broken down, speaks to social dysfunction on how it is that we see each other and how we see the problem.
Yeah.
And then kind of get into, all right, what are the problems from a sociological standpoint? Because what we have yet to have is we've had all the technological breakthroughs, all of them, right? But it's rare that we have the sociological breakthrough in have an age of, you know, mass sociological breakthroughs where we're not committing the sins of our forefathers. That's the issue.
It is an issue. And you know what? It sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of headache. It sounds like, oh man, I gotta know all this other stuff. I got a 9-to-5 job. I got kids at home I'm trying to raise. I gotta put food on the table. But guess what? By you not knowing, by you staying in an ignorant state of what's happening on a political and social level, it's affecting other parts of your life. And so what you're saying should be echoed throughout our culture. You need to kind of get involved. You need to get engaged. You need to ask these questions. the vaccine for COVID-19. It's a serious topic because guess what? It could come to a point for you go back to work, they want you vaccinated. For your kid go back to school, they want you vaccinated. Before you go to a sporting event, they may want you vaccinated. You have to know the pros and cons and ins and outs, the do's and don'ts. It does sound like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But guess what? Go ahead.
Let me clarify my words. I'm not saying people don't get vaccinated, but you have to consider when somebody is pushing a vaccine for their political purposes, you have to wonder whether or not that's the vaccine that is safe for you to take. Because we're not playing with our lives anymore, right? We already heard the president talk about how he knew and he didn't want to create alarm, but then people died, right? He knew, didn't want to create alarm, and then more people died as a result of that. So he could know, right, and understand that he doesn't want people to be alarmed about this vaccine, wants people to take this vaccine, and then who knows what the outcome is for something like that. And that's not I don't want to roll the dice on that. And I wouldn't encourage people to do that as a whole. We need real critical information coming from sources that are unbiased in their analysis of what it is that we're going to be putting in people's bodies in mass that is supposed to be a vaccine. We need to be very clear, and we need to be able to trust our FDA. That's what they're there for. Now we have to create another organization or another group to verify another group because we don't trust what's coming out of them. I don't know, Myron, but back to the point what you were making is we need to vote.
Yeah, we need to vote.
There's more than one reason. There is the text to voting, the direct action of voting, and then there's the subtext of voting, the implications. And we need to be very clear about that. So I definitely believe that more than just a National Voters Day, which, you know, we're recognizing how important that is, but I would almost say it needs to be National Voters Month.
Yeah, I will go as further than saying having the election day, make that a national holiday, right? Give me plenty of time to vote, all the different sources and channels I can deliver my ballot to. And once again, in closing, guys, make sure that you can plan your vote, right? Vote early. I know in Arizona, the last day to register to vote is October 3rd. That's coming pretty soon. If you need any more information, go to vote.org. You also can go to the National Urban League website as well. In Phoenix, we're on Young Professionals. But make sure you have a strategy to get your voice heard. If you have a mail-in vote, vote early. If you feel uncomfortable about mailing your vote, you can always go to a polling location and drop it off as well, any polling location. So be proactive. Don't let someone dictate your destiny, your future, because you didn't decide to plan how your voice will be heard. And on a closing note, one more thing as well, we do have a new Black leadership series coming up pretty soon. We're going to talk with some of the up and coming Black or African-American politicians that are making moves, making changes, and doing things the right way, and have full of energy and have a great vision for a better tomorrow for us. So
turn this red state blue.
Blue, right? And so we're really excited to have these young politicians on, these young community leaders and activists, because we want to know who's going to basically lead us in our new future. At the end of the day, 2020, I know this is a clean show, but I'm telling you, I could wipe my ass with this year and throw it away. It's terrible. So we have to start looking forward to 2021, 2022, 2023, and then on, and how we get set up and make a better day for all of us. Because this year has been a learning lesson on a political, emotional, and economic level for a lot of Americans. I don't care who you are, what walk of life, background, culture, religion. This has been a struggle for a lot of people, but also a lesson that we have to make sure that we stay engaged and have an awareness of what's happening on a political level, and also what's going on with our politicians. Because remember, the politicians work for us. We're their bosses. We hired them by voting for them. So we're not checking them and also following up what they're doing, their ideas and their strategies. We can't look at the politicians. We got to look at ourselves. So guys, thank you for tuning in for Apolitical for this presentation regarding the National Black Voters Day. Once again, we encourage you guys to vote. If you have any questions, go online to vote.org as well. Brian, anything you want to add before we close out the show?
Quite simply, get them in, get them out. Use your vote as the protest. Use your vote to throw rocks at tanks, okay? That's the way I'm looking at it.
Cool. Guys, see you next time on Apolitical. Be safe and vote.